How's it going there, everybody? It's PJ here from the Shuffle Squad, and today on this video we're going to be covering for you the top 8 decks that finished at the biggest North American regional to date, at Pittsburgh Regional. We're going to be covering all of the lists that we can find so far and seeing what actually won the tournament. So stick around if you want to see all the deck lists here and see what my thoughts are on it. We're going to head on over to a message from our sponsors and then check out all these awesome decks in just a minute.
Be sure to check out all of the sponsors of the Shuffle Squad, whether you're looking for graded cards, you're looking for singles, sealed. We have all affiliate codes with all of our great sponsors, so be sure to check them out in the description below. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Okay, so if we take a look at this top 8 list, it's pretty much spread all over the place. There are so many cool decks here, so many great decks that have performed well in the past and just continue to see consistency and wins in this meta right now. And I don't think that much is going to change, honestly, going forward into Peoria, as well as maybe even into Sacramento and Toronto. I know that we are going to get some new sets for all of those regionals, and I'm excited to play some more Pokemon. But taking a look down the list here, we can start down at number 8, where we see Rahul Reddy finishing in 8th place with Lugia Archeops. So we want to take a look at what that list looks like. So let me hop over here. All right, so we see this list pretty standardly now in this meta because there's no Urshifu VMAX in the list. So that's the biggest key takeaway here, is that the Urshifu VMAX that was initially put into the list to counter things like Duraludon VMAX, that's not really seen anymore. So we don't have Duraludon VMAX in the current meta. We do have lots of Lugia because it has such a great matchup spread into decks like Gardevoir, into decks like Lost Zone Box, just regular Lost Zone Box, and even Giratina VSTAR, which we learned here at the Pittsburgh Regional that Giratina VSTAR had to beat Lugia if it wanted to win, and it just did not perform. It only saw a couple of placements in the top 16, and I think it's really because Lugia V-Star was such a great play for the event. I think that maybe even going into the next regional, it is a great play. So we'll run down some of the Pokemon that were used, and that's Tyranitar V. There's 2 copies of that, and then you have your single prize attackers like the Eviltal and the Stonejourner, both single strike Pokemon that are able to attack. Now, with this being said, you are going to run a higher count of the Urn of Vitality to get those single strike energies back into your deck. That way Archeops can accelerate it to those cards because they are your main source of attacking. Now you can attack with Lugia V-Star, and what you want to do with this specific card is put the V-Guard energy here. And I did notice that Rahul was running the 3 count. I know that the Shuffle Squad was kind of experimenting going down to 2, but 3 of V-Guard energy is so good in this deck because it does stop Giratina V-Star from using its normal attack to knock you out with 280 damage. Because that is a 280 hit point Pokemon, it now needs that extra 30 damage to get through and knock it out. So that's where your V-Guards are really important, but obviously attaching them to your other Pokemon like Stonejourner and Tyranitar V are also really good. So you do want to conserve energy when using a deck like this. Now, the other nice thing or different thing about this list here, refreshing, is that Penny is played again. I didn't see too many control lists out in the field when I was there at Pittsburgh, but Penny is a great card just in case one of your Pokemon does get hit. That is a basic Pokemon and doesn't necessarily get knocked out. Then you can just pick that back up. Now, Radiant Serena is good in this sense as well because you're healing damage off your Pokemon, specifically in the Lost Zone Box matchup where they're trying to plant damage counters all over the board with Sableye, specifically on Tyranitar too. If it gets hit with a V-Guard energy on it, maybe it doesn't get knocked out for some reason, then you can just pick it back up, put another Pokemon in its place, and keep swinging with your attack. So Penny is really good, really well-rounded in the list. I do like that. I love the 4 count of Professor's Research here. I think it's really great. Instead of putting a liability on the field like the Squawkabilly EX, still a great card, but maybe going with the Professor's Research is a better idea overall. 3 Ionos to help with that disruption factor, 3 bosses because you really need 3 boss. I really don't like Serena in a list like this, but still very cool. Still running only 2 of the Nest Balls, 3 Stadiums, and the Pumpkaboo for an extra stadium bump that's searchable with maybe a Capturing Aroma Flipping Tails or an Ultra Ball. So really, really nice list here. Very consistent. I do love that. So as far as Lugia lists go, I think that this is pretty cool, and we won't really touch on it, but I want to say that Andrew Hedrick probably ran a very similar list. We don't have Andrew's list right now, but I'm sure it will be up on their Twitter, tagged with the DDG win mark as far as that goes. So shout out to Andrew as well. So we won't necessarily cover that list. We'll hop over that too, but I think Lugia is a solid play. Now here is a deck at 7th place that really surprised me. I didn't think that this deck was going to be any good at all. I do think that, Charizard EX being disrespected for the whole tournament, maybe this had a really, really good run too, just to ramp up that big damage output that maybe Charizard didn't do as well or wasn't as consistent enough to do. But Chien-Pao really coming in here, just swinging into the meta, maybe dodging some of those bad matchups to make it all the way to 7th place. So Lucas Singh had a great list here. We're going to take a look at it with the 3 Chien-Pao. We do have a split of the Frigibacks here. So there are 2 of the single energy retreat cost 60 HP Frigibacks, and then 1 of the 70, just to make it a little bit harder for something like Sableye to come and prey on and put damage counters on for a double knockout with both 60 HP Frigibacks. So I do like the idea of the split there. Only 2 of the Baxcalibur. Then for more consistency, we did see the 2-2 Bebra line. I know personally, playing Lost Zone Giratina for this tournament, I did get sauced pretty hard by a Baxcalibur in round 2, just because they were able to get my Path to the Peak out of the way early enough and then just ramp up all the Pokemon that they needed. It looks like consistency was at a peak here with this list, running the 4 Iridas and 4 of Battle VIP Pass. I see the Ball Search went to a 3-3 line, so that's pretty good too here, just to find the Pokemon that maybe you're not seeing with Irida, and also to get your Bebrels out a little bit faster to prevent those Iono disruption plays. If we're looking at other cards that are semi-new to a list like this, I do see 2 Super Rods in this list and 2 Canceling Clones. So really afraid of that Manaphy, or scared that the Frigibacks are going to get knocked out before they evolve into the Baxcalibur. I really think that that's a great idea. Maybe trying something more consistent like this will yield better results for Baxcalibur and Chien-Pao in the future. But as far as it goes now, I really think that the list is solid. The 4 Pokestops are also another consistency factor here that you want. So having the Pokestop and having the Super Rod together, maybe that is what drives a list like this to a winning spot. So really solid list here by Lucas. I love the way that that turned out. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the list for these next 3 decks here, but we can kind of assume what was happening there. Adam Reinhart playing with the Miraidon Flaffy, so nothing too crazy out of the ordinary. We know that Bravery Charm was a great card to tech in for the Lost Zone box matchups, and everything else, Miraidon really had a favorable matchup into, as long as it went fast enough and those electric generators hit. Now, if you went back and watched some of the games leading up to the top 8 and into the top 8, you did notice that maybe some of those electric generators just didn't hit, and that's what happens in the game of Pokemon. So we won't spend too much time talking about Adam's list. We do have more intel on something like Jesse's for 2nd place, so we'll talk about that later in the video here. Michael Chen played Giratina VSTAR with the Lost Zone engine, and that yielded a 5th place win for Michael. So talking a little bit about Michael's list, I didn't see anything on Twitter yet. I am interested to see if water was included in the deck. We know that Isaiah Bradner had played the 1 of water to kind of bait the opponents that Isaiah had into thinking that water was in the deck, so maybe putting down a preemptive Manaphy. That way you're able to just go and snipe it out. I know a lot of people that I played with thought that I might be playing water inevitably for that tournament and did bench a Manaphy. Was able to capitalize on that too a lot throughout the tournament. So Definitely cool. I do want to work on the Giratina VSTAR list more, and just to see if maybe we can up some consistency for future events, because Giratina VSTAR is super strong, and that's why it was countered so hard with a lot of the lists out there. Another thing to note, I'm not sure if Michael did play that, but I know Isaiah did put back in the Temple of Sinnoh specifically for the Lugia matchup, because then it becomes considerably better for the Giratina VSTAR lists. To just run through a Lugia list. So maybe that's something that we see in future tournaments or future regionals that we'll have upcoming. Andrew Hedrick did make 4th place here, coming in at the bottom of top 4. We're assuming that the list Rahul posted is very similar to Andrew. I know Andrew does love the consistency factor of Lugia, has been playing Lugia for quite some time now. So as far as what I saw, there wasn't many changes to the list that Andrew was playing. Again, the only other inclusion I'd say that we could see here is the Urshifu back in the list, just in case Arceus decks did come out like Charizard Arceus, and maybe just hitting those bigger numbers, respecting Charizard a little bit more with the Urshifu that can one-hit KO a 330 hit point Pokemon. All right, at 2nd place, we had the hero of the day, Jesse Parker, who went on an almost undefeated tear through day 1, just wrecking the meta with the Miraidon Flaffy deck build here. Now, if we wanted to take a look at that deck, I know that later on, Jesse will have posted the list on their Twitter, but for right now, we can take a look at the Worlds list, and I know that some of the changes that were made in a list like this were pretty slight, but also determined the placement for Jesse. If we look up here, Path to the Peak was a huge card going into this tournament, and I think it still is a great card, but Jesse decided to go with Beach Court to help for an easier pivot for things like Miraidon, things like your Raikou, and even the Mareep that was in the list was easier to pivot. I know that Jesse had Squawk in here, and then the Zeraora was cut for, I believe, a Drapion in this list to counter Mew's a little bit harder, because again, Mew was posed to be a really great play into the meta, and also Rapid Strike was great, and we all know that Drapion attacks a little bit easier when there are Rapid Strike Pokemon on the field, even if it is weak to fighting, just like the rest of the crew here in a list for Miraidon. So I think that those were great choices to add, specifically the Beach Court alone, but we're looking at the Forest Seal Stones, the Bravery Charms, all of that is so good here. I really like the 14 count of energy, and the Disruption is great because you play multiple Judges and multiple Ionos in this list. So really interested to see what Jesse's final list was, but I did watch it on stream, and you can watch it too if you go onto Play Pokemon's official YouTube channel or their Twitch VODs and rewatch the regional championship and see Jesse's success reigning true into all of the Lugia on the entire field that I saw in day 1 and day 2. So really solid list from Jesse, and hopefully again we'll see the full list very soon here. And finally, we have the winning deck list of this tournament here, which was Lost Zone Kyogre. I love this list. I think Andrew Estrada played the list phenomenally throughout the entirety of the tournament here. It is running just the 2 Sableye, 1 of Cramorant, and you just have 1 ofs down the line here through Radiant Greninja, Dragonite, my favorite Pokemon. I have over here, and Raikou V, the Kyogre, a Manaphy, and a Hawlucha add here, which I think is really great because you can take double prize turns with Radiant Greninja. You can then take double prize turns in a mirror with Hawlucha and Sableye. I really think that Hawlucha was great. I am pretty sad that I cut it from my Giratina list, but I do think that Andrew Estrada had a great insight into the meta using that card. We do see 1 of Roxanne to counter the Roxannes played towards this deck, and that was also a great include in the list. I know that Zach Lesage was playing the Roxanne in their list as well, so really cool to see Roxanne come back here in a Turbo Lost Zone box list or a Lost Zone Kyogre list. Very cool. I like the 3 of Ropes here, going down on the ropes, and then 3 of Rods, just upping the consistency with the energy recycler. Maybe that's some of the cuts, the Echoing Horn is a must in this deck. And then going with a split of stadiums where you have the Beach Court Stadium in here for easier pivot outs, and then you have Artisan in this list for a better search or an extra search maybe down the line. And then you still have your Pokegears to thin out your deck, get the item cards out of there, get the energy cards into the discard pile. That way you're able to swing for those multi-prize turns with Kyogre. So really, really cool here. I love the energy split as well, the 5-3-3. This list is super solid and very scary for a lot of those other big decks. I know that maybe dodging all of the Rapid Strike decks out there is what yielded the win here, but you know what? I think that this list is very good, and it might not be as hard to play as you think going into those league challenges and league cups throughout the season until we get to our Peoria regionals here in just a few short weeks. So congrats to Andrew Estrada one more time. This list was fantastic. So there you have it, folks. All of the top 8 lists from the biggest regional. Again, over 1,700 masters that were at this regionals in attendance, but all of these decks just came out to play, came out with the most consistent lists to get them the best results, and that prize money is absolutely insane. So if you want to learn how to play Pokemon, this is your time to get into the game and go out there and win a regional championships yourself. There are so many good resources here, just like this video, and limitlesstcg.com, just to show you all of these awesome deck lists. And stay tuned for the rest of the videos here on the Shuffle Squad. We're going to teach you how to play a lot of these decks as well. So stick around and we will catch you next time here on the Shuffle Squad.
You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.